Hey, so this is a recording of me discussing The Simpsons that aired on December 13th, 2015. Barthood. I actually recorded this the night of the airing, but I had no chance to edit it because I just got fucked with fucking shitty day job bullshit for like a week and a half. So yeah, I couldn't do it. So I say at the end of this, I talk about how I might use one of the weeks off of The Simpsons to do this comparison between South Park and The Simpsons. That's not happened because of work and also because I was trying to make this other video, which, so the goal will hopefully be that other video will go up pretty soon, and then I'll be back with another one of these when the next episode airs, which is January 3rd. So I just recorded this to let you know that I lie at the end and go, oh, I'm going to do another recording. It didn't happen. Okay. But hey. Joe's Critical of the Simpsons. Hello there. This is Joe. This is another episode number 5 of Joe's Too Critical of the Simpsons, wherein I do a summary of the most recent Simpsons episodes by doing silly impressions of the various character voices. Some are good, some are not so good. And then after that, I criticize it way too much and pick it apart very painstakingly like a big fucking nerd. So, right before the summary, I just want to say probably a good place to discuss things that didn't get discussed about the previous episode. The previous episode was called Paths of Glory, and I'm just mentioning this because a gentleman commented, Jeff Jacobson is his name. He told me two amazing tidbits about this last episode, because I was saying I don't get why the episode is called Paths of Glory. It's just the name of Kubrick's first film. Apparently, Al Jean tweeted that it's supposed to be like apostrophe Paths of Glory, and the paths is for psychopaths. It's a shortened version of its abbreviation, as though anybody would know that. But it's still a shitty fucking name. But I thought it was interesting because I did not understand why it was named Paths of Glory. And the other bizarre thing about it is that this episode was written by Michael Ferris, and he is the guy who wrote The Game, which some people like. I have not seen it. The Net, which I think has not held up. I also have not seen it. Catwoman, which nobody likes. Terminator 3, and Terminator Genesis.
Sorry, I'm just going to record a really sloppy soundbite in the middle here to say I just found out while doing the final edit on this that I meant Terminator Salvation, not Terminator Genesis. Salvation still sucked though.
And then, I don't know, this is the only episode of The Simpsons he's written. God knows why. I don't, like, Al Jean tweeted, yeah, the guy who wrote The Game wrote this. Okay. Why? Maybe that's sort of his shtick. Apparently he's got literally one Married with Children episode under his belt and literally one episode of Aeon Flux under his belt. So he's done a lot of shit. And then for some reason, a bad Simpsons episode, which I don't know. I don't know if it wasn't very clear that it came from an outside source. It was weird. It was bad. But I didn't know it was some guy who wrote sci-fi movies and Catwoman. And the one last thing I'll say before I get into the summary, which again is pretty long, I think. I asked last time if people wanted it on SoundCloud, if you'd prefer it over YouTube. Nobody seemed to really care. So I guess the only reason I'd put it up there is if they're, a new audience to tap into on SoundCloud, which I'll probably try to do. I don't think it costs that much a month. I'm just, again, still lazy about it. I'm going to keep doing it here on YouTube with the, little bit of video editing, but as always, I'm going to really treat this as though it's audio-based more than video-based, because, even on the video, sometimes I don't change the image that often, because I think it should be something you shouldn't be afraid to click away from and occasionally click back and, see what image is up now. Oh, and because I do see it as more audio than video-based, that's why a lot of the time when some character enters the room, I go, I'm Chief Wiggum, or something, just because of the possibility that maybe my impression isn't good enough. The most notable problem being that none of the core family I've never tried to sound like the family, really. And my Bart and Lisa, I've always known this, the Bart and Lisa voices are quite similar to each other. There's almost subtle, very minor difference there. And I realize it can be an issue whether I'm trying to do Bart's voice or Lisa's voice. So anyway, I'll keep doing it on YouTube one day when I fucking get my shit together. It'll appear on SoundCloud as well if that floats your boat. I think it will happen. Okay, that's it. So now this is season 27, episode 9, Barthood, which aired on December 13th, 2015. It is a parody of the Richard Linklater film Boyhood, which, if you don't know, it's actually pretty useful to know. So I'll say in advance, it's the one that progresses, I think everybody knows right now what Boyhood is, but this is one of those things that, like, many years from now, this is probably, if somebody dredges this episode up, they're like, what the fuck is this? The basic concept is the movie was shot over the course of, 11 years, 12 years scenes were shot over the course of an actual kid's life, and a little bit of narrative was constructed, but it was kind of just about life and living life, which is what a lot of Richard Linklater's films are about, besides School of Rock. And it's a decent film. It's not my favorite thing he's done, but So this is Barthood now, and it's about Bart's life as he grows up. One wonders if they would have done it about Lisa, but it just sounded better to call the episode Barthood, so they did it about Bart. Okay, so here's Barthood. Here's the summary! Bart and Homer are lying on the grass, seemingly bonding. Bart is asking little kid questions like, why is the sky blue, etc., etc. I am a little boy. I don't know how old, but like pretty little. And then we zoom out and we see Homer's all fucked up and injured. His legs are like broken and shit. You left your toy car on the stairs, and I am gravely injured. Now I am frightened of my own child. Bart! This is Marge. Bart, you stay with Grandpa while your dad recovers. So then Bart's in Grandpa's house. Oh, even though you're a little kid, I let you sit in my lap and drive my car, so we bond over that. You've got gumption. I say this a bunch in the episode. It's a theme. So then it's 2 years later. I let Bart drive the car now while I sit in the passenger seat, and he's like, 7 or 8. Anyway, we're still very close. Then we're in the Simpsons kitchen. I am tutoring Bart in reading, Laven. I suck at reading. I'm little Lisa. I show up and read everything easily. I'm smart. Bart, you're gonna grow up to be a nothing, Laven. Then Bart, Marge, and Lisa are in the living room. Bart is playing with toy cars. Lisa is painting the sailboat painting that hangs in their living room, which they've changed the origin of that painting at least 2 times now. Oh, Lisa, your painting is top nuts! I painted something too. It's in the kitchen. Oh, fuck! Bart painted a goddamn mural across the curtains and the cabinets and the fridge. It's a mural of the whole family in race cars having a race. And he's ruined the kitchen. Millhouse is here. I'm introduced in this scene. I'm a little loser is all you need to know. So then Bart is sitting outside watching Lisa bike around, and Homer is inside repainting the kitchen. There's one thing I can do better than you, Lisa. And just as Homer finishes painting the kitchen, Bart drives the car through the fucking wall. Yay! Ooh, ah! Then Marge and Homer go to see a child shrink to talk about Bart without Bart there. I don't know if that's what would happen. I'm the shrink. You need to give Bart more attention, so take him camping. Homer and Bart are then driving, and Bart's got lots of camping stuff with him. I'm excited to camping. Turns out I don't like the outdoors, and we're just gonna stay in a shitty motel for a bit and call it camping. I'm disappointed. Then the whole family's at the dinner table. Oh, Lisa, how was school? The teacher gave me a bumper sticker that says I'm student of the month. Wow, how long have you been in the school? A month only. I've been there 2 years, and no one ever gave me anything. Bart storms up to his room. Homer goes up to talk to him. Oh, you will be grateful for your sister one day. Anyway, I love you guys equally. Okay, will you put this badly spelled bumper sticker I made myself with crayons that says I'm student of the year on your car? Oh, yeah. Then the next day, Bart watches out the window of his room as Homer thinks about putting the bumper sticker on the car and then decides there's not enough room on it or something, and he'd have to cover up Lisa's sticker, so he puts it on the dashboard instead, and then it flies out the window. He doesn't give a shit. Now I am 12 years old. This is the only time they make clear exactly how old he is. Now I am 12 years old. It is my 12th birthday. I am blowing out the candles on my cake. Oh, my phone tells me I'm student of the month for 48 consecutive months. Oh, you are the best, Lisa! But it is Bart's birthday. I write Lisa's name over mine in the cake with my finger. Now it is all about you, biatch. I'm out of this place. Then Bart leaves. He skateboards around, breaking street lamps with his slingshot, and Milhouse is accompanying him. They're bad news kids. Bad News Teens.
Ah, it's me, Wiggum. We caught yous right outside the Springfield Retirement Castle. I get away and go hide inside in Grandpa's room. Thanks for letting me hide in here, Grandpa.
Oh, sure, yeah, we're close, remember? Here's a new bitchin' BMX bike for your birthday.
I asked Mom and Dad for this bike, and they told me to go fuck myself.
And then Bart takes the bike out.
I do tricks on the bike. I'm good at the bike. Now I'm 15 doing tricks on the bike. It's me, Lisa. I'm going to the Mayo Clinic pre-med summer camp. I'm so fucking smart. I guess I'm coming with you to that for the whole summer. Homer, you are here with Bart all summer, so it's your last chance to bond with him, I guess.
Later, Homer is sitting on the couch with Bart.
I'm trying to bond with you a bit, but doing a pretty shitty job of it, and now I'm going to Moe's.
I decide to have a party in the house. I'm Millhouse. I just got out of juvie, and I became Christian there, and chicks think it's lame, so I'm still a loser. What the? Someone is smoking weed upstairs. This could be big trouble for me.
So Bart goes upstairs and opens the door, and it turns out it's Homer and Wiggum smoking weed in there.
You get out of here, Wiggum.
And Wiggum jumps out the window because he's so high. That's what happens. So then Homer and Bart sit down and talk.
So anyway, when you were born, it was scary because I had responsibilities and I wasn't a kid anymore. I'm like you. I'm misunderstood and I just want the family to love me.
Then they have a hug.
I'm glad I have one kid who's never gonna go anywhere or do anything.
You ruin everything, Homer. I'm gonna bike away like a cool hellion. I'm going to Grandpa's grave. He's dead now. Grandpa, what should I do?
It's me, the memory or ghost of Grandpa or something. Anyway, you've got gumption. Do what you love.
Now I'm in a BMX competition.
I'm here. I am supportive.
Then the rest of the family shows up to also be supportive.
I'm very good at the BMX. I'm flying in the air. I'm finally out of Lisa's shadow.
Then Bart sees Lisa's literal shadow appear over the half pipe, so he falls and, goes unconscious.
I revived you using my pre-med training. I'm fucking great.
And then the crowd cheers for Lisa.
You've ruined everything I've ever done.
Then Bart is older. I don't know how old. I think 18 or 17.
I have no more dreams. I do caricatures on the boardwalk. Millhouse is here. You're coming to my graduation party, right, Bart? I don't know. It's humiliating because Lisa is graduating the same year as me.
Anyway, then they are at Millhouse's party. It's out in the woods somewhere.
I'm a loser still, just FYI.
Then Millhouse's parents are there.
We're arguing with each other and making a scene. Oh, it's Lisa to the rescue. You did it, Millhouse, and you're cute now, I guess.
Lisa kisses Millhouse on the cheek.
Lisa, you're the best part of this party. Fuck this. I'm not even the best Simpson at my own BFF's party. I am always second best. Bart, you should stop blaming me for all your setbacks. It's bullshit, and you're a really good artist, supposedly, but you don't do anything with your talent.
Then Bart's an adult, and he started a business called Simpsons and Grandson Bike Customizing, and it's got him and Grandpa on the sign. Picture of him.
It's great. I get to paint on the walls in here and shit. Lisa is here. I'm dating Nelson. Oh, I also did a mural on the gate inside my shop that says one of my favorite sisters and has Lisa on it. So, we like each other fine now. Then Bart and Homer are lying on the grass like at the beginning of the episode, and Bart is asking the questions, but this time they're getting along. Also, I'm drunk.
Also, I'm stoned.
That's how it ends.
Now for criticism.
Right, so, the thing about this one is it's not that bad. As far as Modern Simpsons goes, it's kind of okay. And I'm going to explain why shortly, but I actually want to get the shitty stuff out of the way first. So, the things I do not like, I always complain about how gross Modern Simpsons is, how it's like Family Guy, and it's like violent and kind of nasty and cruel at times. And this one, for some reason, has quite a bit of that. There's a lot of, hurting Homer. The very beginning, Homer's hurt and his legs are all fucked up, and Bart's going what color is the sky? Blah, blah, blah. And then he goes, what color is blood? And he goes, it's red, why? And he's like, it's coming out of your ears. I think he says his ears. And then, there's, a pool of blood starts coming out of Homer. And then it's Homer's in a neck brace, and he's scared of Bart, and every time Bart, lunges toward him, Homer goes, ah! And hurts his neck. And Grandpa thinks it's funny and eggs Bart on to do it again. Freak him out, make him hurt his neck. And then Marge is like, oh, you shouldn't do that, Bart. Oh, maybe one more, which is just like, that's Marge, they're the old Marge, the good Marge from Good Simpsons would never have done that. It's just mean. So I didn't care for that either. Homer's genuinely hurt. He's in a neck brace. I mean, in general, the idea of Homer being hurt, it's become, well, it can be violent, it can be cartoonish. It doesn't matter. He's a cartoon, which wasn't true way back when. There was, when he fell down the Springfield Gorge, I guess it's a comedic moment. Sure, he fell twice, and that's basically the joke of it. But it's bloody, and it was like disturbing. And I think it was supposed to be kind of disturbing. Because he's supposed to be. They have cartoonish moments, but at the end of it all, when you really get down to it, Homer's a real person. These are, the Simpsons has a foot in reality, and it's something it doesn't care about really anymore. And hurting Homer's just par for the course. Later, there's more about ear bleeding. When Bart's in the car with Homer going to their bad camping trip, Bart has an air horn, and he goes meh, and hits the button for so long that blood comes out of Homer's ears. Again, gross. Why? I don't like it. And again, I cut things out that aren't necessary to the plot. At the party when Bart's 15, he's having his house party. There's a part he makes out with Sherry, of the twins Terry and Sherry, and Sherry goes, "Wow, you make out just like Terry said you do." And he goes, "Wait, you're not Terry?" And she goes, "No, I'm Sherry, but the further we go, the more you'll know the difference." Which is, I don't know. Like, back in the day, there was nasty. If you think about the Homer Badman episode, the one which is, I used to say, I just haven't watched enough old Simpsons lately to decide what my favorite is. But for a while, I used to say Homer Badman was my favorite episode, and, until further notice, it is. The one with the sexual harassment lawsuit. The one with the babysitter thinks Homer grabbed her butt. That one has a part where you see one of Groundskeeper Willie's videos is of the mayor, like, I think it's of the mayor clearly having sex with women, and it's like pretty, yeah. Like back in the day, it had some graphic, dark stuff. It's so hard to tell at this point with new episodes if you're like, is that fucked up or is it okay? I don't know. I think it's only really fucked up because of the fact that it's the kids. It's Bart and it's Sherry. It's Terry. Which one is it? Wait, it's Sherry. Okay. And, the notion of like, here's a sex joke with them involved is kind of, I don't know. There was, I remember the future one with Lisa getting married. There's a joke that Milhouse doesn't count as her first time. She's still technically a virgin because Milhouse doesn't count. But, it's less clear. It's just a sort of quick. They used to do these kinds of jokes. They were that kind of thing. That was subtle. This is very, the further we go, the more you'll know the difference. I don't know. These are things I don't know how to feel about anymore. I don't know if I'm being too hard on modern Simpsons, and that would have been perfectly fine back in the day. But it's a little gross in a different way from Homer being hurt, which that I'm completely all about. I don't think Homer should be violently hurt on the regular. I think it's fucked up and bad. Now, they did do what they like to do now. New Simpsons loves to reference old Simpsons. There was a joke about Bart telling, like, when he turned 12, saying, like, you shouldn't live in the past, Mom. And Marge seemed to feel upset that he no longer says I caramba or don't have a cow, man. So they mentioned that. That stuff's okay. I mean, whatever. It's all right. Although they did a thing where, I don't know, and this stuff too, I don't know. These references weren't horrible. They show Maggie growing up along with everybody else, and Maggie, you see her kiss the unibrow baby, who used to be her enemy. I don't care, I guess it's fine, except for the fact that I thought it was great Maggie had a mortal enemy. I don't think they should get together. I just think it's funnier if she has an enemy. And then there were just some bad fucking jokes, like Chief Wiggum jumping out the window. He's so high. He goes, I can fly. No, I can't. And then he jumps out the window. They didn't show it. It's not bloody. So, like, that's something you could have put in an old episode. But it wasn't funny. Oh, he's high. He thinks he can fly. All right. Like, that in itself. The notion that Homer being a stoner is not terrible. He has been in the past. But the fact that Bart was treating it like he could get in so much trouble
Why? It's not a big deal. Like, why were they treating weed like it was a big deal when they've done stuff with weed in the past and made it seem like less of a big deal? Because they don't really know what subtlety is anymore. Yeah, and that's also something too, because you could also argue, oh, well, we don't, depending on when these parts of Bart's life are taking place, maybe weed was a bigger deal, but we have no idea when these parts of Bart's life are taking place because, the Simpsons has been in the present since the 80s. So, impossible. And also, at the very end, when Bart and Homer are talking, when it goes to credits, Bart says, "Did you like the movie Boyhood?" And Homer goes, "Oh, is that what this was?" So they just kind of spell it out, which is kind of fucking dumb, and it's fourth wall breaking, and blah, blah. I don't think I really care for it. It did happen after the moment the credits went on, so I guess it's quote-unquote outside of the confines of the actual episode, I guess. But whatever. This is the reason it's good. Overall, it's basically good. The fact of the matter is, it's set up well. It's got themes. It's got things that a lot of it's set up well. Like almost everything happens for reasons you understand. I think the only part it started to feel like a tangent was when it weirdly seemed to be devoting quite a bit of time to Milhouse's graduation party, as though going like, oh, you were supposed to care about Milhouse's development all the time. They kept mentioning Milhouse. They kept showing you how's Milhouse doing. He's a little loser kid, then he goes to juvie, then he gets out of juvie and he's Christian. So, Milhouse's plot thread was in there. It just seemed for a second like, I don't care about Milhouse. But then they did tie it back in to the Bart and Lisa thing. But yeah, it's set up, I mean, it probably has honestly more structure than Boyhood. Boyhood's not hugely about everything being tied up in a neat little package. It's it's a very kind of slice of life thing, a rather large slice of life. But they had the opening is echoes the ending where they're both lying on the grass, Homer and Bart. But at the beginning, it was because Bart had just injured Homer. And they had a terrible relationship, and at the end they had kind of a good relationship, and they're actually bonding, although one of them's drunk, one of them's high. That's okay, though. Yeah, so, I mean, that's the thing. It had all these themes, and it had all these things that they planted, and they paid off later. It was, we followed a story with Milhouse. We sort of followed a little subplot with Wiggum, but that was stupid. He just arrested Milhouse at one point, and then he was getting high later. But Lisa was, clearly being an overachiever throughout her life. She was always doing better than Bart. Bart was always feeling like he was in the shadow of Lisa. They set up this thing about Grandpa and him being friends early on. They introduced Bart getting interested in BMX bikes, and then that be paying off later when he made this business that was in Grandpa's honor, and it's about customizing bikes. And they set up like Homer trying to connect with his son and doing a bad job of it. So yeah, like it just had all these things that it followed these themes about Bart's life, and it actually connected them, and they made sense, and it just worked as a plot. And it actually had these moments where Homer has a little heart to heart with Bart, and Lisa has a little heart to heart with Bart. Like, it had these emotional moments that you can't really count on happening in modern Simpsons anymore. That's why it was good. I mean, basically good. It's still, as I said, I didn't laugh very much. I think I laughed at 2-3 times. There was the two good jokes. They were both Homer things. There's a part he's mumbling when he's painting the kitchen, "Never should have had a firstborn, should have skipped right to the second." And there's a part when Bart walks out of the house angrily after his birthday party goes shitty. Homer goes, "I'll go get him. Oh, it's no use. He's walking kind of fast." Those were pretty much the good jokes. So I didn't laugh at it. It had all that violent shit, which I thought was, I don't know, in such a pretty grounded episode about, Bart growing up. Why did it have all these jokes about like Homer getting hurt and shit? I don't know. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that's so odd about it, is it basically works. And I think probably the reason it basically works, I've always said, out of every single episode of modern Simpsons, which, like, okay, when you're getting into the episodes right, like, when it's getting bad, like 10, 11, 12, you can still kind of go back and find good ones in those early bad seasons. You can find stuff and find it enjoyable. I remember one of the last ones in those early bad seasons that I thought, okay, I enjoyed this one fine, was the one Apu's kids get kidnapped and put in a zoo. I think that happened, but I remember enjoying that one. It was one of the last ones in the early bad season, but, like, when you get into really fucking bad, I think there are some I would say, okay, maybe check out Brick Like Me, maybe check out Halloween of Horror from this season. This one might go on that list, but not really. But the only one I genuinely say to people who have wisely stopped watching The Simpsons, this is a good one to, like, you'll probably have a good time watching this, is The Book Job. And it's proven true because I've shown these new episodes to the ones I've thought, oh, these are okay, to friends who have stopped watching the show, and The Book Job was the only one my friend was like, yeah, I enjoyed it. The Book Job is the only one I've truly felt is fun to watch, and I think it's actually funny. It's enjoyable. The thing about it, though, is it's not a classic Simpsons episode. It doesn't feel like one. It just feels like somebody showed up, because that was also written by an outside person, like the one last week, except that one was terrible. It was written by, I don't know, a guy or a couple of guys who were up to no good, and started writing a good script for The Simpsons, and it's basically just a parody episode of like, like an Ocean's 11. Obviously, it's named after the Italian Job, but it's like a heist movie, and it wouldn't have occupied a space. It wouldn't have made sense in classic Simpsons, but something just so like an homage, almost doing something like like Community would do, where this is just a heist episode, which Community had a heist episode, but as far as like planting those characters into this like different kind of plot that's just kind of a full-on parody throughout. Like, Simpsons did parodies within their episodes, but I don't think they ever did like a full, this whole episode is gonna just kind of follow a heist movie. But the thing that's weird, and well, no, it's not. I mean, maybe that's what makes sense. Maybe the reason this one works is, oddly enough, when they just the biggest problem with New Simpsons is the plots are insane. The plots feel like they're written by people who do not know what plot structure is anymore, which is fucking nuts, because it was used to be one of the best written shows on television. But now it's like, it's just so hard. I'm sure it's just so difficult to come up with plots that progress in a way that doesn't feel like, oh, we've done this a million times and it's super boring, it's super uninteresting. So things just go in insane directions, and you get plots that just veer wildly in every which way, which I would bring up an example. There's many of them. If you want to listen, the last week's episode was kind of like that. Many of the videos on my YouTube of Simpsons are like that, like Go Fly a Coot. The one where there's a new preacher and Homer becomes a deacon. Like, so many, so fucking many. They're just crazy. These episodes are nuts. And so oddly, the thing becomes, when they do a parody or homage of something, I think they just have, since they have someone else's concept to work with, it's almost like they have a pre-existing structure, and they don't have to worry too hard about, what crazy maneuvers can we do to make this plot work. They just kind of go, well, it's like that movie, so we'll just kind of use that as a template and go with that. And it seems to work for them. It's obviously, there's a short shelf life on that, too. There's only so many full parodies they can do of something, and it's it's one of those things too that's gonna feel not like The Simpsons after a while. Once you do a fucking erotic thriller, I don't know if you can do that in The Simpsons world. You know what I mean? So, and it's also that it's not just parodying. It's not just a genre thing, because you could argue Who Shot Mr. Burns is kind of a noir, a little bit. It's it's a mystery. But this is like, oh, we're specifically doing Boyhood. Oh, we're specifically doing, I don't know. The heist one was, was more just heist in general. But whatever. Anyway, it's the sort of thing that too much of might not work. It certainly ran out of steam on the show Community at one point. But, so you can see that formula doesn't always function. But it seems to work for them occasionally as sort of like, well, now we don't have to worry about writing a fucking shitty Simpsons plot because we've got this template. I mean, that being a little odd in itself, because as I said, Boyhood, the actual movie, not a huge template when you really, I mean, it's pretty fucking freeform, that movie. The only thing in the end, I mean, I only saw Boyhood once, and it was when it was out in theaters. I don't think they copied anything directly from this, because it would have been like, there aren't, the plot lines in that are so understated. It's just life. It's, like a kid gets a girlfriend, the kid goes to college. They're like these small moments. He has a drunk dad, whatever. I guess Homer being a shitty dad is like a parallel, but in general, it's just the idea of jumping through Bart's life. Otherwise, but whatever. Anyway, in some way, it seems to have grounded them. Maybe just the idea that Boyhood is a very subtle film. The conflicts are not overstated, the successes the victories are quite small. Maybe that's what made this work okay. because it was also kind of hard to summarize, because when you do a actually grounded episode, there aren't crazy things to say, except Wiggum jumping out the window, because there aren't crazy things to say like, oh yeah, and then Sideshow Bob fucking eats, starts jumping like a frog because he's got frog DNA. There's not like mental shit that I have to, that on the one hand, there's all this crazy crap happening, but you can explain it in a few words. This fucking insane thing happened. This is a more subtle plot on like a more sort of basic human level where, you have to mention a bunch of dialogue. You have to explain Lisa got a bumper sticker saying she's great. Bart feels bad. Blah, blah, blah. You have to, a lot of it happens through dialogue, and a lot of it's just kind of these little simple, basic human family conflicts, which again is the reason I've always thought if I were to try to summarize a classic Simpsons, it's a lot harder because a lot of these small moments add to the emotional through line of the entire episode. Stuff that you don't have to worry about mostly in modern Simpsons because emotion is kind of dead. So it's just crazy shit, and it's easy to explain. But anyway, yeah, that's why it worked, more or less. The chief criticism I have, aside from the fact that I did not laugh and it had weird violent shit in it, if somehow this was the first Simpsons you ever saw, imagine this magically happening, maybe you would just go, oh, that was interesting. I enjoyed that. I don't think you needed to know. It would make more sense, weirdly, if you I feel like it would. I mean, maybe I'm talking shit, but I feel like it would. I feel like if you were unfamiliar with The Simpsons somehow, then this episode might actually make more sense, because you do when you know it's a Boyhood parody, you sit there going like, well, this isn't structured like a normal Simpsons episode. It's just jumping through between different parts of Bart's life. And if you haven't seen Boyhood, but you know this is a parody, I feel like you're sitting there kind of going like, why is this jumping through Bart's life? Am I missing something? Like, I don't, this is not the normal structure. I feel like it'll weird you out more, because you are familiar with the structure of The Simpsons. Whereas if you just came to this fresh, it's just this thing about, jumping through a kid's life. I guess what I'm saying is it effectively stands on its own, because like I said, they couldn't borrow too much in the way of specific plot points from Boyhood. So I guess it basically works, but it is this thing where you're just like, why did they tell a story like that? Oh, because it's a parody of Boyhood. Like, that's how they justified it. I don't know. It exists in a very weird space where it's a parody, and that's why they justified doing it. At the same time, it could have just been an episode. They just never would have thought of doing it unless it was a Boyhood. I don't know. It's very hard to explain what I mean, but I think it exists in a very odd area where familiarity with The Simpsons maybe makes this harder to get your head around, because you're just kind of going like, why did they do it? Oh, because it's a parody. Which then when you say, you're like, well, that's bullshit. Like, they should have just done an episode. They shouldn't have, devoted to a parody. But when you get down to it, you have to admit, it kind of functions without being a parody. But then beyond that, furthermore, knowing of The Simpsons legacy, again, puts it in a very weird spot. And this is my chief criticism with it. Big Chief Criticism is my nickname. My main thing with it is, if you do know the legacy of The Simpsons and you do know their history stuff, this is not presented as like an alternate history or anything like that. This is presented as the truth. And I do overall think canon in Simpsons is a little bit of a silly notion. It's a little bit of an absurdity to discuss canon in The Simpsons, because I think it's less about everything having to add up, because, I mean, people have mentioned, Homer's life is fucking incredible. Homer's gone to space. He was a worldwide phenomenon in a barbershop quartet. Homer's done these amazing things, and that was back when the show was good. And I don't think you're really supposed to sit there and consider Homer's life in terms of doing these amazing things, but then somehow being presented as a schlub. So you kind of have to let that stuff go a little bit. I think generally canon in The Simpsons, there's emotional canon, there's tonal canon, and that's the stuff modern Simpsons fucks up terribly. It ruins the way the show used to feel. However, I do think it would be nice if, like, the basic idea of, Bart's childhood, Lisa's childhood, how Homer and Marge met, I would have preferred that stuff. There was basically one version of how all that early stuff happened back when the show was good. And I would have preferred that stuff was left alone, because as everybody says, they hate the Sadgasm episode where it becomes Homer started basically Nirvana, and like that's how Homer and Marge courted. You know, they moved up their meeting. They meet in the 90s rather than the, I don't know what it would have been, what, 70s. So yeah, I don't really care for that, because it'd be one thing if it was like, hey, they changed everything and it's better, then maybe I wouldn't care about it. But, you know, when the episodes are worse and they're fucking with the good past episodes, which were really sweet and some of the best stuff, that sucks. Now, as I said, this one's fine, but, you know, I'm not sitting here telling all my friends, hey, go watch the Boyhood episode. It's brilliant. Because it's not. It's just, surprisingly, as usual with Modern Simpsons, when it's good, it holds together and it has more emotional stuff than you expect from Modern Simpsons. But if you compare that to what a sitcom in general is supposed to do, it's not that impressive. And the thing that's very odd about this is it basically rewrites the entire dynamic of the family, a lot of things about the family. It brings in the idea that Bart likes BMX bikes. I don't know why they have him skateboarding in it, but then then Grandpa gets him a bike. Now he likes bikes. That's odd to me. I don't know why they made it bikes. Why couldn't it have been skateboards? I don't know. They must have had a reason, but I don't get what it is. The very idea that Bart and Grandpa are very close, that's completely new. You know, Bart and Grandpa were never, like, great friends. Now the notion is that for a lot of his life, Grandpa was the only one who really got Bart. And Bart was, like, that was the only adult figure Bart had in his life. That's, like, who he could respect and who he could, you know, who he liked. That's a weird new idea, too. Like, that's just not, you know, that's not how it was. And again, if this was presented as a, like, alternate history, but it's not. It's just like, yeah, that's how it is. Bart and Grandpa were always best of friends. Okay? And then beyond that, and then the other thing is, yes, Bart is still the infamous hellion that he always was, but it's tipped more in the direction of it being Homer's fault. It's tipped a lot more in the direction of being, if Homer wasn't so neglectful, if Homer wasn't so shitty about being a dad, if he had any interest in Bart wouldn't be such a fucking fuck up, and he wouldn't be such a little bastard. It's Homer's fault for not trying. And there's elements of that absolutely in old Simpsons, of Homer being a shitty dad, of Bart just being kind of a hellspawn. But, you know, it was a little more of a mix. And I think this episode toned down, it took away, it lessened the notion of Bart is just kind of a bad kid. He's just a prankster. He just likes to fuck shit up. And put it more at Homer's feet and said Homer is the reason. It kind of implied Homer is the reason Bart is not becoming a better kid. The reason Bart is going out and breaking lights, street lights and stuff. This is Homer's fault, which is odd. It's a good idea for, like, emotional shit. It makes for good stuff. But if you know the legacy of The Simpsons, they've just basically changed the dynamic of the show a fair amount. Additionally, the fact that Bart is extremely in Lisa's shadow the whole time, and Bart it presents Bart as a much more thoughtful, sad kid than he was ever presented as. It presents him as he's a bit of a sad sack. Lisa is always doing better than him, which changes the dynamic of both of them. Like, Bart being such a little punk always made him, even though he was doing it was for bad reasons, he was often the center of the attention. Part of Lisa's character has always been that nobody pays attention to her. She is the smart one in a family of not smart people, basically, and she gets overlooked all the time. She's waiting to get out of her house to blossom. It wasn't, oh, Lisa's doing so well, we love Lisa, Bart sucks. There's, again, elements of these things. The notion that Bart's a disappointment and Lisa's doing well. But it was never this kind of thing where it was almost like Bart, it almost swapped who Bart and Lisa were, not for the same reasons, but it almost swapped how they're treating the family. It became Lisa is the one everybody pays attention to. Bart is the poor, you know, misunderstood, badly treated kid, you know. So that's very odd. Yeah. And so, as I said, if you hadn't watched The Simpsons ever, you wouldn't know any of this. But in terms of the show's legacy, this is very weird. It's a very odd episode, and in terms of it changes everything. Changes everything we know about the family, basically. Some of it's subtle, but some of it's pretty blatant how it changes the family. And it changes, obviously, Bart's future. It changes the past. The implication seems to be that they always lived at Evergreen Terrace, which is just kind of lazy. The older episodes where they showed the past, they lived in like an apartment. And it was cool to see them transition and make it to this house and so forth and move up in the world a little bit. Now they just lived they didn't, this episode isn't that concerned with that stuff. They're just at Evergreen Terrace all the time. So it's just, when you get, ultimately, I don't really like the notion that this is now the way everything goes. This is how the past is. This is Bart's future. I will say they gave Bart's future is a decent one. It's one where he's not doing anything amazing. I thought it was lame when Lisa was like, "You're a hell of a good artist." And I was like, "Oh, is Bart going to like go on to do fucking art?" And it's like, "Oh no, he's just going to like detail bikes." Like Bart, it's okay if Bart has an okay future. It just doesn't have to be, like, amazing. I know he became, like, Justice of the Supreme Court in the Itchy and Scratchy movie one, but I don't know. That was those were back in the day where they'd show you something in the future and you kind of knew you weren't supposed to take it too seriously because they put in all this other shit, like this tongue-in-cheek stuff. This time, like, you can't tell. That's the thing about this episode and many episodes now when they deal with the past and the future. You don't know anymore if they're trying to be tongue-in-cheek or if they're just going, no, that's what it is now. That's Bart's future. That's Bart's past. I am also appreciative, though, of Lisa not ending up with Milhouse for a change. We don't go that far into the future here, so Lisa's just dating Nelson, which she's done in the past before. I do think that the writers at this stage do generally believe, yeah, Milhouse ends up with Lisa, which I've always thought is fucked and sad because Lisa's supposed to be better than Milhouse. I know everybody hates Lisa now, but I mean, back when Lisa wasn't shitty, I believe she deserved to end up with somebody cooler than Milhouse. Yeah, it's just in a weird spot. And another thing that's super weird, again, I don't know exactly all the ages that Bart's at. They didn't make it clear every time. But what happens is they deliberately skip over when he's 10, which I believe is he's 10 in the show, right? Like in the normal episodes, he is 10. So the implication here is, in this episode, we skip around all the parts of Bart's life except the endless, endless present that he dwells in for eternity. We skip over it, which I just think that's a funny idea and a sad one. In the middle of it all, there were this fucking year when, there was the forever time in the middle of it all where Bart was 10 forever. But anyway, I don't know. Fine. It was fine for a modern episode. It just fucked with the legacy. And it had some it wasn't that funny. It had some gross jokes. I'm done! So I'm going to give this one a rating of, yeah, it was alright. Out of, the show still should have ended like 17 years ago. Cool news! All I'm going to say, two very quick things. I mentioned the idea, I think last time, that maybe at the end here I would do deep analysis of stuff not about the... That was a funny noise. I would do deep analysis of different topics, stuff like the thing I would like to do soon is South Park versus The Simpsons, and why is one able to kind of change South Park and kind of keep going and be at least entertaining, not horrible, whereas The Simpsons kind of is going on forever and and it's like notably a dip in quality. What's the difference? I'm interested in talking about that, but then it occurred to me, why am I trying to make my life harder? I am not going to make a giant episode where I already talk about a new episode of the show and then tack that on the end. That's fucking stupid. It's much more sensible to just devote that kind of discussion to a whole episode when there's not an episode airing. It's hard for me I keep saying episode. I mean episodes of my show. Fuck me. I keep saying episodes. I mean episodes of the podcast and episodes of the actual show, The Simpsons. When episodes of the actual show, The Simpsons, are not airing, that's when I will do those kinds of discussions. If I'm not doing, reviews of older episodes of The Simpsons. This is difficult. So, and with that in mind, I think I'm going to try to do that South Park thing soon. The South Park season just ended, and I was just waiting for it to end so I could kind of get a feel for how the whole season was. So now I'll try to do that. But and because the next 2 weeks, no new Simpsons. Hooray! Nothing until January, I believe the 6th. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. Although I guess it's cool, it's wise to do this weekly. Probably gonna take a break for one of those weeks. So probably in the next 2 weeks, only one new one. And that's just gonna, in theory, what I'm gonna do is talk about South Park compared to The Simpsons. But I think I'm gonna take a break one of the weeks because I have other shit I'm gonna make. Something gonna be done pretty soon. I think it's gonna be funny. I think so. I think it's gonna be pretty dang good. I don't know. I shouldn't oversell it. I've also promised Den of Geek a lot of writing that I have not done, like a massive thing about the design of Day of the Tentacle, which I think I told them I'd do like a year ago. Whoops. And now that game's actually coming out in 2 months. 3 months. So I gotta write that. But whatever. Thanks so much. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.